Good morning. Welcome to Walking Boxing. Wednesday, August 28th, 2024, and it is fight day. Tonight at the ICC Theatre in Sydney. That's what it's called, the theatre or stadium, whatever it is, the ICC Theatre. Tszyu will fight Mazoudier over 10 rounds for, I was going to say the Australian 154 pound title, but it's not. I think it's for a couple of regional belts and world rankings and everything like that involved apparently. So I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure they said the other day that it wasn't for the Australian title, which doesn't make a lot of sense when you think that Nikita, of course, is the Australian champion. I'm sure Mazoudier would love to get that belt, and fights like this really should be for the Australian title. I'm sure this is the prestige of the belt that they would want at the ANBF. So I'm not quite sure why. Maybe they can't fight for regional belts and Australian title belts at the same time. I'm not sure, though. I did think that was the case a few years ago, and it was actually changed because so many people were actually, or boxers, were foregoing the Australian title and just going straight to regional title. So I'm not quite sure about that, but as I said, it doesn't make sense when you think about it that a fight of this stature is not for the Australian 154 pound belt when one of the participants has got that belt around his waist. So really looking forward to the night. So of course Nikita and Cohen, Michael Zarafa, Tommy Brown in the I won't say it's a co-main, let's just say it's the main support bout. Connor Wallace, Jerome Pampalone, and then another 3 fights on the undercard of the pay-per-view version anyway. So the weigh-in was yesterday, of course. Not as many fireworks as we got at the press conference. I must admit I tuned in thinking, all right, well, what's going to go down here? Especially when it came to Michael Zarafa and Tommy Brown. But thankfully, both guys, they'd had their say the previous day, and I was really glad actually that they were respectful. They did the face-off. They were actually, relatively polite to each other in their words after they weighed in their little, they did like a 30-second interview afterwards. A little bit of, I won't say controversy, but a little bit of drama, if that's what you want to call it, after the weigh-in for Michael Zarafa, in that apparently he hadn't had his bloods passed or submitted to the New South Wales Combat Board. So I'm sure that's all done now and it's all good. I don't think they really knew what was happening after the fight. They did the weigh-in. They did interview Glenn Rushton as well after the weigh-in, and neither one of them was really sure what was happening, but apparently he got his bloods done in Vegas back in March, and I think they're good for 6 months. So they should have been good, but apparently because it was an international fight, it doesn't count and he has to have them redone. But I think he did say he had them done and was just waiting on the New South Wales board to receive those bloods. So I'm sure it's going to be all good, although it was funny. I was just, and I'm not really on Facebook too much, I must admit, but I must have had it open for something, probably from watching that weigh-in, because I watched it on No Limits page. And breaking news, and I thought, oh, okay, it's got a picture of Michael Zarafa. I'm thinking, here we go. Michael Zarafa hasn't passed his bloods and the fight's in danger. I mean, come on. I don't know whether it was through a newspaper or it was main event or whatever, but come on, guys. This guy, I mean, talk about the ultimate clickbait. Fair income. He's got to be sitting back thinking, what is going on here? And it's almost like I have mentioned a few times that Michael seems to have this obsession at the moment with the Tszyu for his own reasons. Of course, he wants to fight with those guys, and that's fine. But it's almost like now the media have an absolute obsession with him, and maybe he is right as far as him saying, well, they need me to sell tickets. They need me to get eyeballs on the event. Maybe he's right, because when you've got breaking news and a picture of Michael Zarafa because he hasn't submitted his bloods, I mean, come on. I mean, I've done 20-something shows myself, and in every single show, right up until the last minute, you're waiting for some fighter to get their bloods in. Maybe the doctor hasn't forwarded them to the combat board. Maybe something might have happened. But in every single show that I've did, 20-something shows, every single time we were waiting for bloods up until the day before, sometimes the day of the fight. So, but yeah, as I said, I think the media just have to calm down a bit. And even when you, I mean, as I said, I've said myself that numerous times that Michael seems obsessed with the Tszyu, but when I was watching the telecast yesterday, and in reflection the press conference the day before, when you look at it, the interviewers, when Michael was talking about, and Ben Damon's probably the same, when Michael was talking about anything other than the Tszyu, they would come back to that with a question or a comment or a remark or something that would steer him back towards talking about the Tszyu. So that's obviously the agenda. I know I've said this 100 times, and I know we all know it's blatantly obvious that that's the way it's going to go, but that is the media for you. They've obviously been instructed to try and get a remark from Michael, a comment that might be a little bit controversial, keep the Tszyu narrative going, and we need to get this fight happening, or fights. So yeah, I just thought it was a little bit amusing with that. But everyone looks like they've made weight. We've got some great fights tonight. So we had I said Conor Wallace and Pamplona, didn't I? So look, there are the three big fights on the card. I think all the undercard fights look pretty good. I'm not really familiar with a couple of fighters on the prelim bouts, but I'll be watching, of course, from the first bout, just to get a view. And I'm no doubt with No Limit, the fights will be good 50-50 fights. Well, let's hope so anyway. But it's interesting with No Limit as well. I was thinking about it again yesterday that just got to go and get Neil there. He gets infatuated with something and just stands there and stares. And I've got to go back and remind him that we're actually on a walk and to keep moving. Good boy. So yeah, the evolution, I suppose, in some respect, of No Limit. I remember when they came on board back in, I think it was 2000, actually I think it might have been a little bit earlier, I was going to say 2018, but it might have been a year or two before that, because they did football shows. So if you're not familiar with it, they did rugby league shows. And they had, I think Paul Gallen might have been one of the first fighters they had, I think, don't quote me on it, but I think that's the case. And it's amazing to see where they've come from with those rugby league shows. Now, I'm not familiar with the Rose Brothers' history, by the way. I know apparently, did they both, or at least one of them? I think George played NRL. So I'm not an NRL guy, so I don't know. So that does make sense. They would have had the contacts at the clubs, plus possibly Fox Sports, I don't know. And then they hit the jackpot. Tszyu was about to sign a contract. And it was a little bit of one of those sliding doors moments, because you had team No Limit. I'll just get Neil here because there's a dog coming. So you had No Limit, and then you had Dean Lonigan from DNL Events, and both promoters pitched the offer towards to Tszyu, who at that time, by the way, was not an unknown, but he'd only had, I don't know, 10, 12 fights, whatever it might have been. He was known by name only, but he hadn't really done anything. And ironically, I promoted his last fight at the end of 2018 in Bendigo, which I've said on here before. So it was the fight after that where he had to make the call. So we had No Limit and Dean Lonigan from DNL Events, with a little bit of a tug-of-war going on with Tim. And there were offers made and everything else. And ultimately, Tszyu and his team signed with No Limit, and they're away. They did the first, I think he actually might have fought on a undercard of one of the cards they did, but the first pay-per-view with him, and I must admit I raised my eyebrows when I saw that Tszyu was in a pay-per-view so early in his career. It was against Joel Camilleri, who, it's ironic again that both best of friends now. Come on, buddy. Just seen a dog. Come on. So, and I remember thinking, geez, Tszyu versus Joel Camilleri in a pay-per-view? Are you kidding me? People are going to pay money to watch these guys in pay-per-views, because you had Tim, who was obviously a big name, or had the name, but hadn't really done anything else. And you had Joel Camilleri, who was totally unknown in Australian boxing outside of sort of Melbourne, where he was a bit of a staple on the Melbourne Pavilion shows. So, and I promoted Joel as well. So, but how wrong I was, because not only did that do great numbers and got his name out there, then after that, Dwight, the late great Dwight Ritchie was next. Just hang on a sec there. Someone's, here we go. And that was the second fight, and there was Jack Brubaker after that, and away he went. And then the international opponent started to come, and here we are. So it's amazing that sliding door moment that Tim signed with No Limit, and here we are, what, 5 years later, 5.5 years later. He's been in numerous pay-per-views. He's obviously been in world title fights on those cards. The fighters that have come after him, Liam Wilson, Sam Goodman, of course, his brother Nikita now, and they rule Australian boxing. So it's amazing. Well, do they rule Australian boxing? That's probably not the right comment. They rule the airwaves, I suppose, with the broadcast, because I've said on here before, with the 5 or 6 world champions that we have at the moment, No Limit don't actually have any of them. So I won't say they rule Australian boxing, but they rule the airwaves with the TV. But the shows they've put on, I've been a critic of some of the things they've done over the journey, and I'll always say that. I'll always call promoters out if I don't like what they've done, and I'll also give them plenty of praise. But even though I have been a little bit critical sometimes, I think overall they've done a fantastic job with their fighters and the events they put on. The events seem to get bigger and bigger, you know, with all the press conferences and open workouts and all that sort of stuff. They just seem to be getting bigger and bigger. I know they've done them for most events, but now they seem like, you know, they've got Sean Porter coming out now. The promoters themselves are well known around the boxing world now. So yeah, it's amazing again, that sliding doors moment. And the other side of that sliding doors, by the way, is that now that D&L Events is no longer. So isn't it amazing that that one decision from Tim seemed to have that ripple effect, or the butterfly effect, where No Limit and Tim Tszyu are flying. Dean Lonergan had to go back to or did choose to go back to New Zealand because there was no TV here anymore, and a lot of his fighters defected to other promoters. So yeah, again, it's amazing, and I've got full respect for Dean Lonergan, don't get me wrong, because he was so great helping me. So I hope he's doing well now, and all the best to him if he gets back into it. But again, it's just it's funny how things work. So. The thing is, I suppose, the other side of the coin with No Limit, by the way, is that the one criticism that a lot of people had, I wasn't one of them, but a lot of people were critical of them in that monopolies aren't good. Now, these are the same people, by the way, who are probably applauding Turki Al-Sheikh getting a hold of world boxing. But anyway, that's a different story. But the word at the time was that, or the view at the time from a lot of people, and maybe still is, that monopoly in Australian boxing is no good. I'm sure, having said that's probably different to the world scene, I understand, but that, again, that's another story, another conversation. But I think it has changed to some extent now that the PBS is involved. So Ace Boxing, Angelo DiCarlo, again, doing great things. All look lost for promoters like Angelo and Wildfighter, Will Tomlinson and others. And it looked like the big, powerful No Limit were going to take hold. And of course, that has proved to be wrong, because Angelo DiCarlo signed that deal with PBS. It's not PBS, yeah, the Premier Boxing Series with 7+, got them on side, and it's done, I think, 6, 7, 8 shows now, and they've all been fantastic shows. So I think all is going to work out, because the fear at the start was that if you weren't, a little bit like Turki Al-Sheikh, I suppose, if you're not with him, then you're going to be frozen out, you're going to be blocked out. You're going to get on no cards, not going to be on TV. And we had a lot of very, very good Aussie fighters that weren't part of No Limit, and that was the fear that they might get swept under the rug and lost in the abyss of boxing. But again, and not just Angelo DiCarlo with Ace Boxing, we had, who's the mob with that were on stand? They had Paul Alcuso signed as well. So, and then of course you got Tasman Fighters with DAZN. So all of a sudden, that monopoly that everyone was talking about didn't seem so relevant. And now to the point we've got the fighters that aren't getting a go with No Limit or who aren't signed with them are now getting those opportunities with the Premier Boxing Series. So I think it's all going to work out fine. You would think that if Jai Pattaya comes back to Australia that there'll be a DAZN card for him. So yeah, I think all in all so far things have worked out, and every Aussie boxer is starting to get the moment in the spotlight. I mean, even Alex Winwood, September 7th, fighting for a world title, that will be on the Premier Boxing Series, which will be the first world title fight on that platform. So I think it's great that all concern can exist on different platforms in the same universe. I don't think we're quite at the point where they're all going to work in together. Let's hope that comes down the track. Maybe we need a Turkey LL Sheikh type of figure to come into Australia and pull all those promoters together. Because at the end of the day, the only ones that lose are the fighters and the fans. So let's hope that something can happen there. But again, I just thought I'd mention the evolution of No Limit, and in turn, the evolution of Australian boxing over the last 5 or 6 years. It's been a hell of a ride, and I'm sure it's just going to get even more fun and exciting over the next few years as maybe more interested parties enter the Australian boxing scene, whether that's streamers, or streaming services, maybe that's promoters, maybe that's whatever. But I think at the moment, I've said it numerous times, that Australian boxing is flying high, and I think it's reflected in the quality of fights we've got happening at the moment, not to mention the amount of fighters that are fighting or have fought for world title belts. So guys, that is it for today. Hope you have a great time watching the fights tonight, and we'll catch you tomorrow.